I mean, it was a childhood dream of mine to be an Olympian. And I'll be honest, my first thought when I heard the news that karate would be in the Olympic Games for the very first time is, man, it sucks that I'm too old. And then my second thought was, you know what, am I? Like, I'd rather try than always wonder.
I'm thrilled to be speaking with Christina Klinepeter, business executive, mom, and former athlete on Team USA for karate. Through her vast and unique experiences, Christina awakens new thinking that unlocks and empowers what's possible. Her background as a designer, where she started her career, and as an elite athlete on Team USA have shaped her approach as a startup CEO and global executive who now helps companies build high-performing teams. Christina leads with strategic problem-solving, agility, and a growth mindset in every arena. Christina, welcome to the show.
Jessica, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm so excited to talk with you. We're doing this interview a few weeks before the Paris Summer Olympics. You were training for the Olympics in 2020. It was a multi-year endeavor. And it was also a big time in life in general for you. You were a startup CEO. You were also in the thick of parenting 2 boys. And then about a year into your training, you tore your ACL. You had a very aggressive recovery timeline, and you ended up taking bronze at nationals. What did you learn from that time?
Yeah, it's a great question. I learned so much during that time. I learned things like we have to take care of our bodies in order to perform at the highest level, truly in anything we do, whether that's sports, our professional career, or even parenting. We operate at our best when we are well rested, eating well, sleeping well. So that was one theme. I also learned more about mindset and really the power of taking time to reset and reflect and fix what we need to in order to leapfrog forward. So when I tore my ACL, I was at an international competition. I was sleeping maybe 5 or 6 hours a night. I had another big competition, probably the biggest of my career at that time, the week prior in a different country. And so, traveled internationally, competed the following weekend in a completely different time zone, was dealing with jet lag. My ACL tore on contact. So in that competition, there was kind of a freak accident. My opponent came across at my knee. It's not something that happens normally. And it was so devastating. I knew immediately something was wrong with my knee. I didn't know the extent of it. So I got up, kept trying to fight, realized I really can't move around on it. And so tried to win. I actually won that match.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I actually kept trying to fight on it because, again, I didn't know the extent of the injury. And it was very clear in that next match that I really would have to stay still in order to fight because I had no mobility left. So got through that match. I did medal, but I didn't win that match. There was just no way. I did want to keep going though, even though I was in pain and had limitations, because everything on the mat is training for whatever is next. And so say I made it to the Olympics and was competing in the Olympics, right? And on the mat dealing with this same situation, I wanted to have the experience of continuing, keeping going to see if I could win. So it probably gives you a little bit of insight into my mindset on the mat and just training and competition. But yeah, so that was devastating. It came at a time when, by the time I went to the doctor, I was still training on my knee. I really had no idea it was completely torn. So when I got the news in the doctor's office after, a couple MRIs and seeing a couple different people, I was devastated. The thought of my dream being over in this way was just so gutting. And so the U.S. team trials for that year, this was 2017. So the U.S. team trials for that year in 2018, it was just a month away, a month and a half. And so I walked through the scenarios with my doctor of, hey, can I just fight on it? What's the worst case scenario if I just compete without an ACL? And he really guided me away from that because I could do more damage and, it would mean even greater reconstruction. And so was able to get scheduled with him for surgery, I think maybe 2 weeks out from that appointment, which is very quick. And this is one of the best orthopedic surgeons, works on a lot of professional teams. So just did everything during that recovery time that I could, got through the surgery, got through, recovery. And during that time, was able to look to other professional sports athletes that had dealt with a serious injury and come back even stronger. And truly, this is where my husband is just so amazing. He's a great partner, and I truly couldn't have done this without him, this entire journey. But even in this case where I was recovering from an injury, he gave specific examples of athletes at the highest level that came back even stronger. And so I studied that and took recovery just as serious as any other endeavor in life, and was able to expedite my process of coming back, returning to sport, going through all the protocol, and then showing up at nationals. So it was a really great piece of my journey, and probably one of the medals I'm most proud of throughout my career was that comeback story. And there was a lot of other, things happening at the time too in my life and with my family, my extended family, that just really, as I look back, I'm so proud of the resilience that I showed in that competition and the wisdom, because to be honest, all I needed to do was place top 6 in order to progress to the next level at nationals. And the risk there is, had I injured it again, I'd be at ground zero. Right? And didn't want that. So I had to play conservatively, give myself the ability to tap out at any moment. And I had a great day. I felt good, and I took bronze.
Wow. What an incredible story. What was that conversation like when you talked with your family about, hey, I'm going to go for the Olympics? I can't even imagine, tell us, what space was that in? How old were your kids?
So this would have been 2016 when, karate, it was announced that karate would be in the Tokyo Games. And it was a childhood dream of mine to be an Olympian. And I'll be honest, my first thought when I heard the news that karate would be in the Olympic Games for the very first time is, man, it sucks that I'm too old.
Huh.
And then my second thought was, you know what? Am I? I'd rather try than always wonder. And I was doing CrossFit at the time, so I was in decent shape. I was actually on a family vacation. So I think the timing was serendipitous because I had some time to reflect, could chat with my husband and let him know, hey, this is something I'd love to do. And, when we have kids, we often, our life becomes about them, which is great and supportive. And sometimes it's also too much. And we got to the point as a family where, talked with my husband. He was willing to go on this journey. I said, I don't want to wreck our family over this. We're a team here, but if we want to go on this journey together, I would love to. And he said, yes. We brought it to our kids. They were in that 8 to 9 year old stage. So they knew enough to have the conversation. Obviously, they were still very young. But yeah, it was awesome. And we were able to go on that together. And when I first started, wasn't quite sure how we would navigate all the different facets of it. But we were able to take it one step at a time and get even further than I, could have imagined.
Yeah, taking it one step at a time. You were an unconventional aspiring Olympian. You had a whole business background, and you had been a designer, and you were a mom of 2 young kids. And when you got on that journey, you ended up competing with people maybe half your age. How do you think your life experiences and your wisdom helped you in competition?
Yeah, I really saw coming back to the sport after taking time off as one of my greatest assets. So maybe I'll quickly back up. So I started karate when I was 4. I did it for 20 years. I retired the first time, having given it my all at the time, but still feeling like I don't know if I reached my best. And that question haunted me. But, focused on my family, my career, had 2 kids. And during that time, really grew up, because that first part of karate was, it's like I kind of defaulted into the sport. My dad was on Team USA. He had a karate school. We basically had to be in karate when we were kids. And so coming back to the sport for the first time on my own terms as an adult, I felt like gave me a leg up in maturity and wisdom, and truly had the internal motivation this time, rather than that being something that my parents put on me. And so I think this is important for a couple reasons. Like, one, for any parents listening that have kids, like, we really need to let our kids decide what they want to do. Yes, sometimes we need to push them, but also we need to let them choose their path. And 2, I do think coming back for me was like, there's a whole story there before I was even able to, in myself, say, this is something I want to do. For me, for an example, for our kids, because, as parents, like, we often put ourselves aside. And at the same time, like, if we can model what it's like to go after our dreams for our kids, like, how powerful is that, rather than just telling them. So yeah, it was a really powerful thing for me to even be able to raise my hand and say, like, I'd love to do this. Let's just try.
Yeah, it sounds like there was an internal journey to get there.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there were little milestones along the way of unlocking that ability to say yes.
Yeah, there were definitely huge milestones. I'm an open book, and one of those things in my life that I could not have said yes to this opportunity without is therapy. Mm-hmm. So I probably started therapy a decade earlier to just like work through, those messy parts of life. Like, who am I? What do I want? What are my feelings? And so it was really that journey that and diving deep into mental health and emotional wellness that allowed me to get to this point of valuing my needs and wants and choosing to take the risk and having our family invest in me, when so often, we as women kind of sometimes default to like being helpers rather than like owning our own space and our journey.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing all of this. It's really powerful, and I think a lot of our listeners will be thinking and reflecting on this. Mental fitness is a big theme for you in sports, in work, and in life. These days, how do you train your brain? What practices keep you grounded?
Really, mental performance is performance. in a lot of ways. And as I worked with trainers, we've really kind of perfected the physical performance side, even the recovery side, and how to maximize physically. But really what also is behind physical performance is our mental performance. And for me, I kept getting stuck on that. There's like a natural fear that arises anytime we want to do something big as humans. It's kind of how we're wired, right? So there is this natural order to having fear instilled in us, but truly to reach our full potential, we have to go beyond that fear and take risks and have courage. And so, I kind of perfected, for me, a morning routine, an evening routine, a routine of reflection, of setting goals, of writing down in the morning, 3 things I wanted to accomplish that day. And it could be tasks, but it could also just be a way of moving through the day. So got into this habit of journaling in the morning, reflecting in the evening, and then also in the morning, I would do some visualizations, some mental training, and worked with a neuroscientist and mental performance coach, as well as a therapist to perfect that routine for me. And I use the word perfect, but I actually don't like that word at all. I sometimes call myself a recovering perfectionist, because I think perfect isn't the goal. The goal is taking that next step forward and continuing to refine, and getting to reach that goal. But there's not always a perfect way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think even realizing what is actually holding you back is perhaps not the physical, but the mental is a huge realization and a huge first step. Let's take a moment to reflect on this question. What do you do to train your brain? Outside of hosting this podcast, I partner with leaders in the workplace to turn professional challenges into leadership successes and career progression. I love working with executive leaders, aspiring C-suite professionals, and of course, ampersands. If any of this sounds interesting to you, reach out to me at jessicawan.com. That's JESSICAWAN.com. Now, back to the show. How have your experiences as an elite athlete showed up in your experience as a parent?
As a parent, it's allowed me to model for my kids, and then also be intentional in figuring out, how to push them and how not to. And I'll be honest too, there are times of being, there is this element of being an elite athlete where I've pushed myself to the max, right? And sometimes even beyond. That creates some challenges as a parent, because there are times when it feels like to my kids, I'm pushing them beyond what they're okay with. And so I really have to be intentional about regulating that, so that, I'm not always looking for ways to improve or improve them. That's not fun to live in. And they'll be the first to tell you that. And so we have a lot of conversations around that, which I think is also healthy. It's this is how I am. There is a bright side to it and there's a shadow side. And so it's how do we live into the light side of that and all the great benefits? And then how do I manage the shadow part of it? And I do think that kind of ties into this ampersand lifestyle too.
You are also, on top of being an elite athlete and a mom and running a business, you're also pursuing your MBA at Northwestern. What inspired you to go back to school?
Got to a point where I just realized, you know what? There's still more to learn. And I've learned so much on the job and it's been great. and I can read books and listen to podcasts, but I really wanted that knowledge from a great institution. And that's where Kellogg comes in, Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern. And it's just already been such an incredible experience. I truly believe that there is still value in getting an MBA from a great institution. So I started the program in January. I'm already about 40% done. And the people I've met have been incredible. So it's been a really great next pursuit for me. And at the same time, if you look at the timeline, I had retired from Team USA a couple years ago. Everything changes when we retire from something we love. There is a recalibration, finding a new normal. I had this entire community, this group of global friends that all of a sudden I wasn't going to see anymore. And so there was this kind of gap in my community. And in finding that new normal, felt like, okay, maybe this is the right time, not just professionally to get an MBA, which is something I've wanted to do for a long time, but also just personally, finding that new community. And it's been really beautiful.
What do you think ties together all of your work?
I really think it comes down to values. It also comes down to this kind of mindset that I really owned and created in my karate journey. And I summarize it in 3 words. And it's really play, trust, risk. And that's kind of a mantra for me. And I've realized it really is showing up in every arena. So play as in playfulness, lightness of heart. Sometimes we actually, as ampersands, need to try less hard. We need to go lighter. We need to just bring our kids' spirit into this. And so I always competed at my best when I was playful, not serious, not angry. And that's actually something I wanted to prove during my journey, is that we can be at our best with that playful spirit, and lightness is more powerful than coming at that from an angry place. So play, trusting ourselves, trusting our path, and then risk. We have to take risks if we want rewards. There's just no other way around it. And so getting comfortable and building those muscles of what does it look like to take a small risk today in my life where I'm at. And that might just be the smallest thing that no one else notices, but that we know is building those muscles of what we want in life, which is that life of being our best. So play, trust, risk.
Oh, so inspiring. Through these interviews, we are co-creating the Ampersand Manifesto, Principles for Leading a Multi-Passionate Life. What do you think should be included in the manifesto?
My recommendation is that we really embrace a paradoxical mindset, and that we make sure and guard against feeling like we need to be about one thing. Because marketing and society and the world, and I can say this because I was a marketer, it's very easy for us as people to hear the message that we need to be about one thing. And I truly believe that when we live a life of diverse interests, we can bring that creativity and curiosity to improve, multiple factors and arenas. So that and embracing the both and, right? The paradoxical mindset.
I love it. Christina, it's been such a pleasure talking with you. Folks, you can follow Christina on LinkedIn or on Instagram at @CKlinepeter, or learn more at ChristinaKlinepeter.com. We'll link to these in the show notes.
Thank you so much, Jessica. This was a great conversation. I really appreciated it.
If you liked this show, hit like, subscribe, and share with your friends and fellow ampersands. And if you're enjoying our show, please consider leaving a rating or a short review so that more people can find out about the show. I had a chance to listen back on my interview with Christina, and I wanted to share a few key takeaways. 1. Her comeback story of returning to karate at an elite level is just so incredibly inspiring. How many of us did an extracurricular quite seriously as a kid and have thought about bringing it back as an adult? And going for the Olympics, no less. I loved how she caught herself in that first thought of, I'm too old, and then questioned it. Am I? 2. Christina shared so much wisdom and food for thought for parents who identify as high achievers. How important it is to parent with self-awareness, to push your kids enough but not too much, and to instill a growth mindset without demanding constant improvement. I thought it was such a great summary when she said, how do you live into the light and not the shadow side of that achievement orientation inside yourself? 3. I have been thinking about the idea of ampersand and how it's really beyond people who straddle two worlds. It's really a mindset, as Christina said, embracing a paradoxical mindset. In a world that often feels reductive and divisive, both and thinking is a way through that negativity that allows us to connect with each other. And every little step we can take in that direction is a positive one.
Yeah, there were definitely huge milestones.